In this video, I'm going to take an honest look at some of the character builds and show you that they might not be as great as you would otherwise think. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Now, I can safely assume you love watching content, and I love making content for you, but sometimes when I try to watch something, there's this little annoying thing called region blocking. Well, with Surfshark VPN, I'm able to access all of the content that's blocked for me by virtually traveling to another country, and all I have to do is just pick a place and press a button to obtain the IP address of any country I want. And now, I can watch some of my favorite TV shows on Netflix and Crunchyroll without needing to deal with those boring restrictions I kept seeing before. But if getting more content isn't enough, then I'm sure you're aware a lot of companies and hackers steal data shamelessly. However, I feel much safer using Surfshark's clean web feature that prevents malicious ads, trackers, and all sorts of bad stuff that you're exposed to without it. And right now, by using my code shown here or by just clicking my link in the description using my code Gacha Gamer, you'll get 83% discount as well as 3 free months of subscription with a 30-day money-back guarantee. But more importantly, you'll also help support my channel with future videos. So make sure to check out Surfshark now. First of all, just a quick reminder that when I talk about these builds, I only consider them to be unfavorable in endgame content like the Abyss or events like the recently added Vibro Crystal Research, since in the open world, it doesn't matter how the character is built because the enemies are a joke. Now, with this out of the way, the first character I want to talk about is poor Aloy. You know, I've heard a lot of conspiracies circulating about her. One popular belief is that since Hoyoverse, or at the time MiHoYo, wanted to get Genshin onto PlayStation consoles, the only way Sony would allow this to happen was by collaborating on a character. And so, Aloy of Genshin Impact was born. No constellations, no proper introductions, just a cold mail you receive that contains this free character. And a lot of people believe that MiHoYo created this character out of necessity, without bothering to give her constellations and presenting her as a 5-star character, just so they can be done with this deal they were forced in by Sony. Well, despite the conspiracies, Aloy is still a free character that you can build, and while she isn't popular, sometimes I kind of enjoy using her in the Abyss. And here's the thing, you can build a lot of characters in this game as your main damage dealer, meaning someone who takes up a lot of field time and the team is specifically built around them, which in Aloy's case, you can also make her into your main damage dealer, but should you do it? Not really. She is far more better in challenging content as a quick swap unit, and the biggest reason why it's hard to use her as your main damage dealer would be the inconsistency of her coils. See, unlike Yoimiya or Hu Tao, you press a button and they gain an elemental infusion, while in Aloy's case, she needs to use her skill, which produces bomblets, then 4 of those bomblets need to hit an enemy, and then finally Aloy gains cryo infusion. And sure, you could say, well, why not just use an animo character like Kazuha or Venti and quickly gather up the bomblets to get those 4 stacks? Well, Venti's burst will disagree with you, and while someone like Kazuha can move the bomblets, the developers decided there needs to be some kind of a hidden timer with a cooldown, so even if all bomblets hit the enemy after using Kazuha's skill, Aloy will end up with 3 stacks. So instead, you need to play around this and wait for an enemy to first step on one of the bomblets, then use Kazuha, or perhaps this becomes less of an issue when she already has 1 stack left over from the last time she used the skill, but the point is, it's very inconsistent. So building her as a main damage dealer is just not that great, and even when she finally gains the cryo infusion, the damage multipliers and the lack of talents to support her normal damage produce average results at best. Anyway, this is the ballad of Aloy's rough entry into Genshin's universe, and despite the fact her cryo infusion is questionable at best, I still like using her as a quick swap damage dealer. Just capitalize on the burst with Noblesse Forced and she's good to go. Thoma is one of those characters that's easy to like, and I'm one of those people who when I first got him, I immediately raised his skill and burst to level 9, slapped Emblem Forced, and put on a powerful 5-star polearm. After all, you cannot expect him to literally just be one-trick pony, right? He has to be a great shielder and a damage dealer. Well, the former is right, but the latter, I mean, I don't know why Hoyoverse were so stingy with his damage multipliers, because I was one of those people who initially thought I can benefit from his damage when using the burst. Obviously, the skill's damage is like, whatever, but the biggest selling point to use him in a team would be the burst. The problem is that these damage multipliers are unfair, and to add insult to injury, his burst also costs a lot of energy. So you need to work around this issue if you want to consistently trigger the burst. In fact, one of the first things I did when I initially reviewed him was to just compare the damage difference side by side when using a sub damage dealer build on the left side and shield bot build on the right side. As you can see, the damage difference is negligible, and all of this effort would also require getting resources like strong artifacts, raising talents, and giving him a powerful polearm. So yeah, unless you really want to feel like he contributes some kind of meaningful damage, going all this way to just get low to medium damage support, in my opinion, is just not worth it. Unless you're a mega whale or just bored of saving up resources. Like, don't get me wrong, I think his shield is pretty great, especially as you keep unlocking more of his constellations, which is a thing we rarely talk about when discussing 4 stars. They do improve his drawbacks, like 4th constellation reducing energy needs, or the final one providing a small but admirable boost to normal, charge, and plunge attacks when using his burst. Anyway, point is, it's really not worth building him as an offensive support. It's better to just focus on getting on him enough energy recharge, and then equipping artifacts with health main stat, so that his shield becomes chunkier when using his burst. Thoma is still fun to use as a shielder, and there's no one better than him when it comes to housekeeping. I feel like I need to remind this again. You can build any type of character you want, but in some challenges, it just won't work that well. Which is why I want to talk about Rosaria, specifically her physical damage dealer build. Now, she's one of those characters where, on paper, it sounds like she's going to be a great physical damage dealer. You've got her first and last constellations, which work cohesively together to boost her normal attack damage. She's also cryo, which is one half of what you need in order to cause superconduct reactions, and a lot of people believe that Dragon Spine Spear was specifically made for her. I mean, who knows, maybe it was supposed to be her signature free-to-play weapon. But the irony here is that even if you do decide to use Rosaria as a physical damage dealer, Crescent Pike provides better value. Now, even if supposedly you build her with all these things taken into consideration, the problem here is that when she utilizes something like Crescent Pike, her normal attacks are just a bit slow, and compared to someone like Zhongli, who can output a lot of hits in a short amount of time, it becomes kind of clear that her physical main damage dealer build is just not that amazing. Which again, I'm only saying this when I want to use this specific build in the Abyss or some time challenges. And the funny thing is, Rosaria is actually an insanely good unit when you build her in reverse melt or freeze teams. She's easily one of the best picks when it comes to Ayaka freeze. She's super good with Favonius Lance and feeding particles for the team. She can also boost everyone's critical rate, and in reverse melt, she will deal some serious damage. Heck, the reason why I believe she has that last constellation is to help boost other physical damage dealers like Eula, Zhongli, Razor, and so on. And I admit it, I was one of those content creators who initially thought Rosaria could be used as a physical damage dealer, because back then, the mindset was different. We were still as a community figuring things out, and I still believe that you can easily use Rosaria's physical damage build in a lot of different content. But in the last few Abyss cycles, the enemies have become unforgiving, especially when you have things like corrosion hanging over your team. Now obviously, if you look at the current Abyss cycle, she does gain a nice boost to her normal attack damage from the Abyssal Moon Blessing, and if you use 3 other strong meta characters, you can clear the Abyss with her. But I've tried doing the same in previous cycles, back when Yunjin got released, and I couldn't say that this physical build was working for me. I mean, at the end of the day, Horrorverse cares very little for physical damage dealers, since the last one we've had was Eula, and I like Eula a lot, but clearly the developers want to focus more on the elemental combat. Still, Rosaria is one of my favorite characters to use in the Abyss. There's always a lot of teams that want her, and I can easily whip up something like Freeze or Reverse Melt, while in the open world, yeah, I actually do use her as a physical carry, because why not? It's not like these old gladiator pieces need to be used by someone else. I know I shouldn't be including Diona here, because I'm sure a lot of you know already she's a great support, and yet somehow you might get tricked into believing she's supposed to be a damage dealer. Like seriously, if you look at her Ascension stat, she has cryo damage bonus. What were the developers thinking? Obviously, after Shenhe's release, she can deal a respectable amount of damage with her elemental skill or burst, but it's really Shenhe who's doing the damage here, and I don't want to go deep into the calculations of Icy Quill's formula, but the point is, I would still not build Diona with the usual damage dealer build like Cryo Goblet and Critical Rate or Damage Circlet, since she's far more superior to be utilized as a healer, shielder, and a battery to generate cryo particles. Can you really imagine giving up Sacrificial or Favonius Bow in order to put on something like Thundering Pulse or Stringless? Eula, Ayaka, and Ganyu would be very sad without these particles Diona could otherwise generate. But yeah, I'm not sure what was the deal giving cryo damage bonus to Diona's Ascension stat, but I'm guessing the developers, just like most of us in 1.1, didn't have a clear picture yet of what Genshin's team building should look like. All of this talking about the builds just got me thinking about the Wild West that was 1.0 Genshin. I can still remember some wacky ideas like Razor, who supposedly should be built as electro damage dealer once you get his last constellation, or focusing on Xinyan's pyro damage from shield and burst. It's fun to remember these things. and reminded me that 1.5 years had passed. And I think all of us together, including myself, have grown to understand the game better. But I also think if you're just someone who's starting out or still in the mid-game, I wouldn't worry too much how you're building your characters, since once you reach a certain point, everything will become about the artifact farming, and you'll understand our pain of getting defense and health rolls over and over again. Anyway, I hope you like this video. It's a little different than usual. I'm also thinking of doing account reviews, so let me know if you want to see this type of content. As always, thanks for watching till the end, and see you soon.